News Report with your anchors, Sebo Moabelo
and Kamila Sebo.
And we're here to give you a special report on a widely debated, prevalent and fabled concept that's been spreading throughout the nations for centuries. Democracy.
Tonight we take a look at 3 of the world's newly industrialized countries.
And Senegal.
We shall take a brief look at the theories that constitute this concept of democracy! But first, tonight's headlines. Dilma Rousseff, first female president in Brazil. In Senegalese news, democracy in the hands of the people.
In other news, democracy spices up in India. And in South African news, accountability of the nation at its address.
Rousseff is breaking down the gender barriers as she heads a nation. This tackles a portion of gender-related inequalities that women have faced, as gender norms have forced us into a certain type of confinement in roles.
As we reflect on the first Indian elections in 1952, we know currently India has about 850 million people to account for through votes, and this reinforces the importance of participation in a democratic system. The president is called upon to answer for his exorbitant financial misappropriation. Hashtag, where is the money?
Show us the money.
Bring back.
Report you wrote to Parliament, you have never given a date and the method you are going to use. You can engage any other process, it will not help you because it comes back to one question. When are you paying back the money? So that is...
The voices of the Senegalese nation will not be drowned by the power of a political figure that is President Wadi. The former president attempted to run for his 3rd consecutive term as president. However, he was stopped by the successful protests of the people. Democracy in the hands of the people, power to the people, by the people.
To explore the concept of democracy, we took it upon ourselves here at 24/7 News Studios to gather perspectives and ideas by rodents on Rose University campus.
Hi guys, in the easiest way you can think of, how would you describe democracy, or what is your definition of democracy?
I reckon democracy is peace, democracy is love, democracy is life.
Democracy is South Africa in a nutshell.
Basically, like for me, democracy is like what it's supposed to be and what it's advertised as. You know, like there's supposed to be unity and diversity in race, color, creed, all that stuff. There also cultures as well. But like what's really happening is not really, they're not practicing what they're teaching. So that's just my view. And like speaking on behalf of like the Indian population, I would say that it really doesn't affect us as such, because if you have to think about it, during apartheid, we'd say a sandwich, we use a sandwich model. The filling was Indians and colors. On the top, the first slice, the whites, and the bottom slice of blacks. Now, technically, we're not affected because when the so-called democracy came around, the sandwich was just flipped around, so it's not really affecting us as such.
Okay, so the word democracy is actually derived from the Greek word demos, right? Which meant the poor or the many. And one of the most basic interpreted functions of democracy is to rule by the people and for the people, meaning that the country is run by the public interest, and there is a political equality and equal distribution of political power and influence. Do you think that our country, South Africa, has functioned under this type of democracy?
Okay. In the past, just a brief history on South Africa. In the past, there was a government that or a system that suppressed a certain ethnical group, a certain racial group, if I can say. So I think back then, in the apartheid era, there was no democracy by the people for the people, because it didn't represent the entire citizens.
I think that what we have in South Africa is in some ways a democracy, at least in theory, but practically speaking it's not. I think I like the idea of what they have, direct representation, for example, in Switzerland, where everyone actually raises their hand and their vote counts, as opposed to just having politicians who are supposed to represent. and often end up not doing anything. So I don't think there is like power to the people in the sense of democratia. It's not there in South Africa at least.
Democracy gone wrong. Are pulling from a very bad, very problematic premise, right? And that the premise is that the majority of South Africans cannot be trusted. And when we think about a majority of South Africans, we're thinking about Africans. And so a number of people, in fact, are saying that the Africans cannot be trusted to vote a government into power that they want. And I think as so far as that is being said, even unconsciously, I have a huge problem with that.
I think that it's amazing that South Africa is one of the first countries, not only like when the whole gay rights movement was sort of legalized and gay marriage was legalized, but it was also definitely like the first country in Africa, as far as I know. And it's just amazing that it was legalized before like America, which was only legalized in 2015, and all of that kind of stuff, just because people kind of have the perception that South Africa is very like far behind in its politics and sort of like economic structure and all of that kind of stuff, but it's great that that's one thing they were ahead of, like with first world countries.
Now, there are notably two types of democracy, right? One being direct democracy and the other being representative democracy. Now, direct democracy is a form of government in which all laws, bills, or issues of justice are voted on by all the people in the general public. So basically, the people of the country vote on which laws they wish for instead of electing a legislator to kind of make those laws for them. Could you imagine any benefits or problems a country would gain from the system of democracy?
Are you saying dependent on which?
On direct democracy.
On direct democracy.
Yes.
I feel to a certain extent, if people of a certain class have been oppressed within our country for quite a while, they're gonna want to install rules that are gonna oppress the oppressors if they could. To that extent, I guess, then it would be rough in terms of equality and things. But I guess in terms of there could be many wrong things that could happen within our country if it was like that. But I feel like there's also a lot of benefits that it'll have.
I think one of the main problems that you could get is, especially in South Africa, there's a lot of areas and people that they're not educated, and with that lack of education, they don't actually know what's really cracking, and because that's the majority of people in South Africa are unfortunately uneducated, and if that's the majority, I think they have the possibility to run the country to the ground rather than up.
Democracy! Be alert, be aware, be the change you want to see. A government that embodies the spirit of the people, for the people, by the people.
This was 24/7 News Report. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Oh, that feels like it's gonna be so bad. I think I just hit record there.
Been spreading throughout the nation for centuries. It's democracy. 3, 2, 1.
Well, I think it's if it was implemented properly, it'd be better. Why are you drifting to this? I'm just
in their quality, while India hasn't.
Concept of democracy.
Do you think that our country, South Africa, has functioned under this type of democracy?
Personally, I would say not really, because